Hi everyone, how are you doing today? This is Anastasia with Navigate STO School Executive Director. I go by Staci, and today we have Josh Johnson with us. Josh, talk to us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you for having me. Of course, my name is Joshua. I am the CEO and founder of an organization called Dope Dad here in St. Louis, branching out outside of St. Louis as well. We are an organization with a mission to highlight, inspire, and encourage the positive relationships and interactions between fathers and their children. I am a dad of a 5-year-old, which I'm sure we'll get into today.
Awesome. All right, Josh, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about like your personal like K-12 education story coming up, going through middle, elementary, high school.
Okay, so I am born and raised in the great city of St. Louis. So I've been in St. Louis City Public Schools all my life. I went to an elementary school called Kennard Classical Junior Academy. It's recently been renamed, but I can't remember what they renamed it to. It was absolutely amazing. It was a super comfortable school. I met some of my lifelong friends who I'm still friends with to this day. It was fun learning for sure. From there, I went to a school called McKinley Classical Junior Academy, which is kind of the feeder middle school from there. Again, many of the same friends from Kennard. We just naturally went up to McKinley. So again, continuing those friendships and relationships from there, I kind of branched out a little bit. I went to Gateway Tech, another St. Louis City public school, but it's a little bit different than the feeder school that we would naturally go to. But again, still enjoyed it, but it was a lot more fun because I got to meet new people who I had never seen in my life because they didn't go to the same schools as me. So pretty much St. Louis City public schools all my life.
Awesome. So talk to us a little bit about how like your past experiences, either elementary or like personal, have like fueled the work that you do today.
Um, I would say my past experiences at some point in time I worked with the juvenile division, and that was very interesting because working with the young men, I kind of saw just different family structures that I wasn't used to. I was blessed to be raised with my father, also a stepfather. And so to interact with a lot of people who didn't have those good relationships with their fathers, didn't know them, or were just beginning relationships with their fathers in their teenage years was interesting. So I knew that it was very important for dads to be present in children's lives, but also for dads who were present to make sure that they had the resources necessary to make the relationships that they had, or just to push their kids as far as they could, or push their families as far as they could. So with Dope Dad, I really wanted to make sure that young fathers, old fathers, fathers alike had access to the different resources that they need. They knew that there were other people who were willing to help support them, other fathers who were willing to share their experiences, and also we worked to create spaces for those experiences and interactions to happen.
I think that's a really cool outline that you have there, and lots of unique experiences that kind of inform your current business. So you're like a St. Louis native. You've talked about like going to elementary school up through high school here. You also went to SLU, correct?
That is correct.
So just being as familiar with the city as you are, what role would you say that those experiences played when you and your co-parent were selecting a school for your child?
So my daughter's name is Corey. When her mom and I were thinking of schools, like you say, both of our experiences kind of played into that. And it was interesting because, as I said, I kind of went through a feeder program of schools. And all my life, I thought that you could choose what school you went to. You can just pick at random what school you went to. And it wasn't until I was picking schools for my daughter that I realized that, some school districts are based on neighborhoods. Some schools you have to test into or meet certain criteria, whatever the case may be. So it was a little interesting. Her mom went to private schools all her life, so it was also different for her. So when we came together, we had, unfortunately, some ideas of schools that we did not want our daughter to go to. And we didn't have much information on them, just kind of hearsay that we heard here and there. We didn't know of any really tools to search that information other than asking people around, kind of, what have you heard about this school or this district? And from there, we kind of narrowed it down to a few different schools and selected one.
What values would you say that you guys consider early on in that process to figure out what was important?
Uh, a few values were we knew that we wanted a school that was interactive, had a lot of interactive learning. Our daughter is very energetic, and we knew that in order for her to thrive in an educational setting, we wanted it to be kind of fun learning.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted there to be some sort of diversity within the school. We didn't want it to just look like one thing or one person. We wanted her to have exposure to new people who she
Mm-hmm.
may not meet within our neighborhoods or whatever the case may be. Also, we wanted a lot of exposure learning. So new things that we may not be able to teach her at home, she may not be able to experience at home, but in the school, she may learn about those things. So those were important. We wanted to make sure there was a student focused school as well. We wanted the teachers to have the necessary tools that they needed within the classroom so that our daughter and any of her classmates could thrive.
Awesome. So you mentioned Corey was super energetic. How are you guys adapting to pandemic learning?
That is a great question. It's been almost a year now, and I would say we are still adapting. In the beginning, it was very different, somewhat difficult, especially with the virtual learning.
Mm-hmm.
We're lucky her mom's actually an early childhood teacher. So that was helpful. I am not a teacher, so it was different for me. And my daughter, again, is 5 years old. She's in kindergarten. And personally, I feel like those are the building blocks, the fundamentals of education. So this is a very critical year for her. So I was a little nervous. Thankfully, the school had it outlined pretty well that it was easy for the parents to kind of guide the students through the learning modules. Thankfully, we did have, laptops at home and internet access. One difficult thing was since her mother and I co-parent, Corey's in two separate households. So trying to balance what it looks like in her mom's household and what it looks like in mine was a little difficult. Also trying to guide a 5-year-old through that. So we're telling her, hey, we know you've been going to school like this, but now you're going to come home and do school differently. Also, you're going to do it in two different households. So thankfully she got adjusted, and right now they're actually back in the classroom. So that's super, super helpful.
Awesome. What has leading an organization like Dope Dad and being a young Black man taught you about how fathers are perceived in like these education and parenting spaces?
I would say that I found that it's kind of surprising to a lot of people when dads are involved in those things. That was part of the basis for me even creating this organization was a lot of people had taken notice to the relationship and the interactions between my daughter and I. And to us, it was normal and natural. But I found that a lot of people in the community weren't exposed to that, I would say. So I'd say traditionally, fathers aren't expected to fill those roles. A lot of those things are passed off to moms. But again, within my experience, I've learned that everybody doesn't have the same family structure. Some households don't even have a mom in it.
Mm-hmm.
So dad's definitely taking care of everything. Some households may have two fathers or whatever the case may be. So it's important for dads to be educated on those things so that they can be involved.
Yeah. Okay. So my question to you is this: how do schools and organizations and things create spaces and encourage more involvement from fathers? You mentioned that some kids may not have fathers present in the home or what have you, but what can organizations and school systems be doing to encourage fathers to become more active in their child's education?
I think that schools and organizations both have to be sure to include fathers. It may take a lot of encouragement in the beginning. Again, we said this not traditionally the person who organizations look to for education and things like that. So making sure to get dads involved, keeping them informed. I think that sometimes dads just don't know, So educating them on things involving education and including them in things, of course we love dads and donuts and events like that and career days. Those things are important. But we also need some curriculum conversation and making sure dad knows, hey, this is what's going on in the classroom. This is what we need from you at home as well. And honestly, educators may have to delegate specific tasks to fathers. Like, dad, we want you to do this activity with your child. And in the beginning, that might be necessary, but sooner or later, hopefully dad will be comfortable enough to lead those type of things himself.
I think that's really important. You mentioned donuts for dads.
Hmm.
That's always the one that gets brought up. I think that I would consider myself to have been a lucky child. My dad was one. He worked third shift when I was growing up, and so he
Hmm.
got to be the one that did the school field trip chaperones and came to like the field days and cookouts and things. And so I know that that was important to him. But you're absolutely right that some of that, when you get the calls home, it all goes to send this to mom and make
Yep.
sure mom signs this. So I do think that creating those spaces and actively encouraging fathers participation is really cool, because you also hear those stories of dads who are like, wait, what doctor do they go
Yeah.
to, or
Yeah.
what school is this kid actually
They
in?
don't
And
even know.
so yeah, I think that is right. You have to be more intentional in that aspect. And so speaking of intentions, what are some ways that you're being more intentional as a parent, even outside of the classroom, to encourage Corey, and how do you see those things spilling over into her education?
I could probably list off a lot of these. One specifically that we've seen recently um, is being responsible for your actions
Mm-hmm.
and following instructions. So in the classroom, those are things that we want Corey to do. We want her paying attention to the teacher or instructors, and we want her following their directions and things like that. But we've seen recently that Corey also wants this for the other kids. So she's kind of become like a classroom monitor in ways, which can be helpful. But now we're kind of working on Corey. Let's focus on Corey and allow the grown-ups to focus on the other kids. That's one. Another one is we work on patience a lot. Again, she's very energetic. She likes to be involved. Sometimes she gets a little frustrated with things when she wants to be involved, but she has to wait her turn. So in the classroom, that's very important to be patient. Also with learning. So some things she doesn't get automatically, and it takes a little bit more time. So telling her to kind of relax. I understand you don't get it right now, but let's try it again, and kind of encouraging her to keep going. Those are probably two of the biggest that I've seen.
And so you think that that early focus is really helping her translate into school?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, with these being the building block stages of her learning, the things she's learning right now are very important. So I
Mm-hmm.
want her to understand, hey, it's going to take time. Everything won't be easy, or your classmates may understand things a little bit before you do, or you may understand it before them, and there's nothing wrong with that. So making her comfortable in her learning, I think, is helping her as we go throughout this year and will in the future as well.
Awesome. So what do you think fathers need to be doing to become more active in their child's education, um, and in general?
I think that this kind of goes back to my earlier answer, being informed. So, knowing who your child's teachers are, what school they're in, the things they're learning in the classroom is extremely important. I know with my daughter, every day when when she gets in the car from school, we have a conversation about the day, and I mix up the questions, but often I ask her, did you learn anything new today, or was there anything fun that you guys did today? Or you learned anything? And hearing her talk about it is, I kind of figure out what she's excited about in the classroom. So I know other things we can talk about. I can learn things that she may not be so comfortable with. Um, and it's kind of actually, I think it's helpful for her learning as well to repeat it back or teach it to someone else. When we get home, I like to go over the lessons with her, or we'll practice numbers or letters or whatever the case may be. So I'm a teacher at home as well. And I think that dads doing those things could be very helpful for them, but also their students. One thing I see with a lot of parents is they get to that seventh grade algebra, and all of a sudden mom or dad doesn't know what's going on,
Uh huh.
you know? So in a way, I'm relearning everything so that when we get to those stages, I'm prepared as well. So as my daughter's learning things, I'm learning and refamiliarizing myself with those things so that when, pre-calc pops up, it's not such a surprise for me. So being informed, educated on different things, and, active in the education is important for dads to do.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that even in thinking about like asking you this question, I went back to the value sheet that we have families do when they do navigator appointments, and And I think that maybe that's another place where that could be intentional for dads too. Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
it that you as a father, or you as a man, as a parent, want for your kid, and thinking about it, and not just kind of making that mom's decision and you'll go along with it, but actively speaking up. I think that's another great thing to do also. So as you've been through this journey and you've learned things about Navigate STL schools, I guess my question to you is be, what would one tool or thing that you think that every family needs to know when it comes to K-12 education?
One tool that they need to know or need to utilize.
Know, utilize, have.
Can I say the internet?
Yeah, okay.
I think that the internet is probably one of the most important things for families having access to the internet. I know that that's not the case, but I think it's extremely helpful, specifically Google and YouTube, because otherwise you may not know certain information. You may not even know certain resources, but if you have the access to the internet at the tip of your fingertips, there's so much you can learn. Technology is extremely important. It's a part of everyday life now. And as we look back, our generation, or maybe the generation before, didn't use technology as much in education, but I think that it's an everyday part of education now. So familiarizing yourself with those tools and utilizing them with your kids can be extremely important, extremely useful, beneficial. I know with some things, we can be doing addition, and there's a YouTube video for it. A fun YouTube video that's going to get the kids' attention. Somebody's made something funny that the kids love, can't take their eyes off of it. And it kind of helps with you, so you don't have to create that lesson plan yourself. There's somebody who's done it before you, or there can be some information that you're looking for that someone has already searched before you. So utilizing that technology, I think, is extremely helpful.
Awesome. And what do you think is the most important thing that an organization like Navigate STL Schools can be doing for parents?
I think that Navigate STL Schools is extremely helpful in teaching parents all the what's of education. So what's important, what does the data mean, breaking down the data, sharing the data, because there's so many things, again, that there's hearsay. We've heard about this school, and that information could be extremely outdated. That could be from 5, 10, 20 years ago. Like I said, I went to a school called Gateway Tech. 10 years later, it's now Gateway STEM and might have a completely different curriculum, different programs. But if I continue spreading this information, some people may believe that with organizations like Navigate STL Schools, you have the current information, the current data. And again, when you sit down with the navigators, they can teach you what each of those things means or why it may be important to your child's education.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Josh. Really
Thank you.
appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you. And I'm looking forward to ways that we can connect with other dope dads when it comes to helping them navigate K-12 for their kids.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Awesome.